animal protein is, quite frankly, it's just about poison. In our lab, we could turn on cancer, with animal protein. But the totality of the evidence, animal food has nothing in it that creates health. Nothing. We don't need animal protein. Animal protein is the cause of heart disease. And it's not just all by itself. It's just that mere decision that we want animal protein. And as we consume more animal foods, we decrease the consumption of plant foods. As I've seen firsthand, the public is totally out of it, I have to say. They're prisoners of what they're being told. But somehow we thought animal protein was almost like the Bible in nutrition. Nobody questioned animal protein. I had this data back in our lab, we could turn on cancer, with animal protein. But in our hands, in the laboratory, we were trying plant protein to see if it did the same thing, and it did not. If we're consuming a diet of whole plant-based foods, we're actually getting the ideal levels of protein. We don't need more. But unfortunately, 95% of us, according to the national statistics, are consuming in excess of what we need, and we do that by actually consuming animal-based foods. And that raised the question, when did we discover animal protein? Well, it was discovered in 1839. It was a crystalline product by the chemist that was working on it at the time with dogs. Dogs that were eating meat. When they're eating the meat, they survived, and when he took away from them, they died or weren't doing so well. It came from the Greek word Proteos, proteos. That word in Greek means first. It's also interpreted as prime importance. They named it from the proteos and gave it the name protein. They must have had it in their mind that eating animals was essential for our lives. And that's an old story, as you probably know, going all the way back to the biblical days. There's always been, in a sense, two points of view. We can eat animals to get healthy, or we don't. Eating animals, that was the stuff of kings and queens and royalty. So that carried on, and it was justified finally when he discovered this chemical and he gave it the name protein. So protein became sort of it was the flag, of a good diet, because it belonged to the rich. They started it first, and men started it before women. Through the 1800s, it took on a life of its own. And if anybody came along and questioned that, as the founder of the American Cancer Society did, they were kicked out. Anybody who questioned this idea that protein, animal protein, not plant protein, animal protein, that was another story. I mean, it was first discovered in meat, as I said, that's animal protein. But in our hands, in the laboratory, we were trying plant protein to see if it did the same thing, and it did not. It became industry, essentially, or a combination of industries, the livestock industry. All of a sudden, milk is, it has protein in it too, casein. And that's, of all things, that's the protein we were using to turn on the cancer. Of course, I'm from a dairy farm too, because it was a struggle for me to believe that. That's how much people believe in that kind of thing. So the protein story unfolded, but every time somebody raised some serious questions about it in the scientific community or the medical community, the guy who founded the American Cancer Society, the president, he gave a speech in 1913 to announce that we should have a society like this. Then the American Cancer Society was founded. He was kicked out of the program in 3 years' time, even with his fame and all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of that evidence going. You could see it evolve during the 20s, 30s, so on, and 40s, because there's the whole food working. It's not just the protein animal protein is not good. We showed that very clearly. But it's not the animal protein by itself. What really is important is in our heads. We believe in the right to eat animals to get good health, number one, which is centuries old. That's what was named protein, prime importance. As I'm sure that there's a connection there between that. So we had come to believe in that idea. That led to the livestock industry. If it's whole, the constitutional nature of disease, that didn't go anyplace. So the local theory of disease became sort of the go-to idea in science as far as human health is concerned. Because if we can identify exactly what causes what, which chemical causes this disease and so forth and so on, that became science. That's the best of science. Work hard, try to find out exactly what does what. So we focused on individual nutrients. So we had individual foods that started to be favored because of nutrient contents and all that sort of stuff. You had to get this nutrient, that nutrient stuff, which is nonsense. I mean, that's really crazy. And what comes out when you look at the totality of the evidence, animal food has nothing in it that creates health? Nothing. We don't need animal proteins. So we built the livestock industry, that went forward, it grew, and so forth. And the other side, we not only started to talk about individual nutrients, we started to talk about drugs, because it's the same concept. The disease forms, okay, a very complicated disease, most obviously in all cases, essentially, very, very complex disease from a scientific point of view. And diseases are formed because we're eating animal food in large measure. We're also eating parts of plant foods out of context, like sugar, salt, and stuff like that, which are not good either. They're very specific things. Then we're going to treat the disease with drugs. And that's when the drug company came into play, and they had the answer to everything. Don't worry about it, we'll get a drug for it. A little bit sarcastic, but that's really what it is. And so the drug companies became very, very powerful because they were able to convince the average consumer, we know exactly what your disease is. Let's have a look, and we'll tell you what's wrong with you. And then, by the way, we got something we can give to you and block it. I mean, it really is archaic. It's totally out of character. But that's what we're living with now. Treatment of cancer patients, millions treated with chemotherapy with that idea. They'll find a chemical that can kill the cancer cell. That's why it's called cytotoxic. They're killing cells. And so we lived with cytotoxic chemotherapy especially since the days of Nixon in the modern day. And everybody getting treated, but basically the total picture, they don't work. It's that simple. Nutrition is the opposite of drugs, because nutrition, all these things are working together. That's what we discovered in our research. Because if you change your diet in the right way, the outcome of that is major savings in healthcare costs, for example, major effects on the environment. If we just change our diet for that reason, understand nutrition, we eat plants, period, end of story. If you change your sleep habits, you're not going to change the world. Even if you change your exercise practices, we all know exercise is great, but if we are only changing our way just through exercise, we're not going to change the world. Those things don't change the world. Are we going to manage our stress? No. The problems we have in the world today that need to be changed just as fast as we can is the food we eat. We want to save our planet and save ourselves. We eat the right food. It's that simple.
Like this video so more people can see it. Share this with someone you love. Subscribe to see more and watch this video next. Make life sweet.